Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. We are here for the news this morning. Pretty big news actually, coming out last night out of the Daily Mail. And this is the news, according to them, that Paul Pogba is set to pull off a spectacular U-turn and stay with Manchester United. Basically, extend his contract at United. Again, this is coming from the Daily Mail. Sammy Mockbell, I guess that would be how you pronounce it, or Mockbell maybe, for the Daily Mail, is saying Paul Pogba is prepared to commit his future to Manchester United amid growing belief he can spearhead a new era of success at Old Trafford. Following months of rumours regarding his future, the France international was expected to leave Old Trafford before next season as he enters the final 2 years of his deal. However, Sportsmail understands Pogba sees his long-term future at United and is happy to stay and even extend his existing deal. What do you think? First of all, what do you lot think to this? Get your comments in. Let me keep talking a little bit because there's a few more details to get through here. But let me know your thoughts on this story in the comments, and I'll come to those comments in just a minute. Later on in the article, right at the very bottom of the article, sort of hidden away, tucked away, is Pogba already earns in the region of 300 grand a week at United, but a new deal would take his earnings to around £400,000 per week, which is sort of Sanchez money. Pogba has trained this week and could be available for selection against LASK in Thursday's Europa League tie, which is actually a bit of good news, regardless of what you think to the rest of it. Failing that, he hopes to return to the squad for Sunday's Premier League clash at Tottenham. So he should be back within the next week, potentially even tomorrow night's game. But this is a huge story. For a long time, we've been talking here about Paul Pogba leaving, and I've never been one to suggest that I don't think his injuries are feigned or faked or anything like that. I don't think he's malingering in any way. But there have been those sorts of rumours, just around. There have also been rumours that he tells his family to say these things and tells Raul to say these things. There have also been the sort of inverse rumours saying that he doesn't like them saying what he says, what they say about him, because obviously they've come out over the years, certainly in the last few months, talking about how Pogba likes Real Madrid, how he's not necessarily happy at United, how he wants to win trophies, all this sort of thing, which has led to a little bit of unrest in and around the fans directed at Paul Pogba, which is strange because he's slowly drifted from this sort of. He was brought in straight away as a talisman. He knows the club. United fans love him. You can get behind him straight away because he knows what it is to play at United. He clearly likes United. He's left and he's come back again, so there's obviously love there. But this sort of partnership, this relationship between him and the club and him and the United fan base has been divisive, and more and more so this season as he's not really played. I think he's played 7 games or something this season, made 7 appearances. There've always been reports and suggestions in the media, I think for a long time, that the Graham Souness kind of rivalry with Pogba usually did tend to be United fans and Pogba against Souness, or United fans and Pogba against whoever the person that was slagging him off was. But this season, I think most people could, probably see it. There has been a general trend towards Souness and United fans against Pogba, or the support of Pogba has waned. I wouldn't even say slightly, dramatically in the last few months. But this, and a lot of people, the basis of that has been his entourage, be that his brothers or his agent, like I said, coming out and saying things like he wants to move other places, or he likes the look of this club, or he wants to win trophies, or this sort of thing. Even, Mino Raiola having a public spat with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and then pretending he'd never said anything. So there's been a lot of controversy and sort of problems around Pogba, and he hasn't been able to allay any of those sort of worries and those and that ill feeling on the pitch, because he's not been fit, and I do think genuinely has not been fit. But yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Mittel in the saying, I think this is a move by the club to increase his price. There's potential there. Someone said 400k is almost 6 times what Bruno earns. Yeah, Someone else saying, also, I don't think that's true. What is Bruno on 80k? Maybe that is true. Jesus. I've arrived late. Recap for me. Or half of what Ashley Young was on. So, is Paul Pogba worth twice what Ashley Young was on? Yes. Is he worth six times what Bruno Fernandes is on? No. But these are how contracts work. These are how, Paul Pogba has been playing in the spotlight as one of the most recognisable and best players in the world for the last 6 years, whereas Bruno Fernandes has had one big contract at a top 5 European league club. So there's a reason why these things sort of stack and accumulate the way they do. It's not always based just on the player's quality. Someone's saying 70k, right? Yeah. Someone else saying this was Mino's idea. There's always so many conspiracies with Pogba, isn't there? Nothing ever seems plain sailing. No one. I've seen. To be fair, I have seen plenty of people saying, if it means he's willing to support the club, if he's willing to work hard and knuckle down and get stuck in, then great. But there's always a lot of people going, oh no, there's more to it than this. There's this. It's very much this sort of mind games. Something about Raiola and Pogba specifically. People have found it hard to trust and believe in the last sort of 8 to 12 months, which you can kind of understand, but at the same time, it does seem to be a sort of a stretched position that is getting more and more stretched, this idea that nothing that Pogba says is ever true, nothing that Raiola says is ever true. They must be telling the truth at some point. Yeah, this is generally Ryan Hall here, echoing what a lot of people have said on Twitter and in the comments so far. Pogba has to commit and sign a new long-term deal or go. Had enough of this half-in, half-out circus. I think that's generally it, isn't it? People don't want to feel... United fans don't want to feel like United have been taken the piss out of, that the fans have been taken the piss out of. And it's a strange one because... Other than his agent coming out and stuff, I think these things of him dancing on Instagram, most people these days know that this is all part of social media is part of being a footballer. It's part of being a brand, being a person in the media. Like, I think generally the fans don't pay too much interest in that sort of thing. The older guard of the media, the likes of Souness, the likes of, you see it in the Daily Mail, these kind of more established not old media, but sort of mainstream media, tend to find problems with this sort of Twitter, Instagram type generation. But I think generally the thing that actual United fans are bothered about is your family and agent are coming out saying you want to leave and you aren't stopping them or correcting them. So if he does sign a new contract, I think from what I've seen, and certainly my opinion would be good. If he wants to stay and he's happy and he signs an extension, he's an excellent player when his head's there, and if his head's there, then great. If the contract money is true in terms of 400k, not worth the effect it would have on the squad. Imagine if we start poor next season, he's swanning about while his family and agents stir in the pot. But if he signed a contract extension and he's got 5 more years, even if he is swanning about, then we can just sell him. I think the thing is, if we take a risk on him being here next season without him signing a contract extension, then he starts talking, and then his agents and his family start talking again. Then he's only got 1 year left, and you've immediately taken half his value away. As we saw, with the likes of Thibaut Courtois going to Real Madrid for, 30 million, because he only had a year left on his contract. We've seen a lot of players do a similar thing. I don't know why that was the first one that sprang to my head, but I think if he signed a new deal and then he starts swanning around, or whatever, you're using your words there, then you can just sell him. I think the financial sort of security of the new deal is what I think this kind of Pogba's stay is dependent on. There's also the problem that we've also talked about on Stretford Paddock, just in a kind of speculatory way over the last few months, is who can afford to buy him. Real Madrid spent 350 million last summer on six players, I think. It was Mendy and, Jovic. Was it Jovic? I can't remember. Loads of players anyway. They spent, I think it was 350 million quid. Eder Militao at the back as well. Loads of players between 50 and 70 million. And not all of those players have worked out. So it's not like they've got, Eden Hazard, another one, 100 million they spent on him, and you would say so far he hasn't delivered. So it's not like they've got limitless money, and they have just spent a lot on players who so far haven't been worth it. So they're in a position where Do they replace their players? They still need another striker. They still need, maybe another right back even. Or anyway, the point is, they aren't necessarily in the market for £120 million Paul Pogba. And even if they were, can they necessarily afford him? I know they have a strange way of being backed by whoever, but at some point they still have to make that money back to be able to afford new players, as we've seen with Real Madrid, as we've seen with Man City. The other option is PSG, but does Pogba want to go to a team that is... How do you even describe PSG? Flaky in the Champions League, to say the least, and dominant in a league where there's an average attendance of about 26,000. What, is that even much? Is that much better than what Pogba's already done? I don't know. And then the other option is back to Juventus, and again, they've spent 100 million on Ronaldo, and other than that, they tend to like a free transfer here and there. Can they afford to buy Paul Pogba? So there is part of me that maybe thinks Paul has seen it, that there isn't a market for him this summer, or Man United have seen that there isn't a market for him this summer, and are sort of turning this into a bit of a, well, he'll stay then, and it's because he wants to stay. So when you do come for him next summer, when you've got a bit more money, or when financial fair play has ticked over another year, and you've got 120 million to play with, then we can sell him for a bit more. So there may be something like that going on. We saw with Cristiano Ronaldo that in the 08-09 season, he wanted to leave. We convinced him to stay for another year on the proviso that he would be able to go to Real Madrid the year after. And maybe it's a similar sort of thing with Paul Pogba. The only difference being, at the end of next season, Paul Pogba will only have 1 year left on his contract, as I said, and that will cut his value in half. So that's where the extension may come in. Right, on to our next story. Our second story of the day. We are talking about tomorrow's game. We mentioned it briefly in the podcast yesterday, me and Jay. If you haven't checked that out, go and check it out. It's a good discussion. But tomorrow's game is being played behind closed doors in Austria. Obviously, coronavirus is the reason behind it. It's more of a kind of public service announcement, this, because I think there was only 900 or so fans going to the game anyway. It's an absolute nightmare to get to. I think it's very intermittent, sporadical flights direct from Manchester, and I think it was something like a 17-hour, have you heard that, 17-hour bus journey to LASK just because of where it is situated. It's in Austria. Yeah, or it's a train or something. It's a overly sort of tricky route to get there anyway. But how do you think this will affect the game? Because it not only will there be no fans at the game, it's also not LASK's usual home ground. They play in their different ground in the Europa League because their home ground, I think, holds 7,000 and it isn't up to UEFA standards. So it's not a ground that they've played at a hell of a lot over the last few seasons. And now without that home support in the terraces, is it going to be basically a neutral venue? Do you still consider this to be sort of an away fixture? Obviously, it's in Austria, but it's a ground they don't play in very often with no fans there. So I wonder. It's obviously going to be a strange one watching it on TV with no fans in the stadium. But it's something that we're seeing more and more around Europe. We saw it. All of Serie A is postponed now, but we saw it in Serie A over the last few weeks. So. I mean, it's something to be aware of, but really, does it change much? Does it maybe even help United's chances of winning the game? Someone says, might as well put fake dummies in the ground, make it look packed, and then just play like cheering noises through the tannoy. Behind closed doors is the last thing anyone wanted. I think that's enough on that story. There's a few more comments about Paul Pogba before we go then. Someone say PSG like throwing money around for fun. Yeah, I think PSG would probably want him, but it's just whether he wants to spend his sort of final, or his sort of peak career years at a club that's dominates the league. And, there's something about PSG that isn't very attractive, isn't there? Something a little bit ugly, and they just seem like a sort of second-tier team. I think he wants to go to a Real Madrid, a Juventus, that kind of level team if he would believe in United. It is a nice one. If Pogba stays and doesn't get injured, we could have the best midfield in the league. I still think City's midfield is probably deeper than ours, even with Paul Pogba. But imagine a midfield with options like Fred, Matic, McTominay, Pogba, and Fernandes all in there, and then you've got Mata as well as backup. You've got who knows what the deal will be with Pereira and Lingard, but yeah, it's all of a sudden looking like a bit of an exciting midfield and an exciting team, isn't it? Right. This is why I respect the Europa League more recently. Should be an extra confidence booster to maybe see Bruno or Martial bag a hat-trick. Yeah, I think we may see Bruno. I'm not sure if Martial will play just because he's played a lot. Someone said it'll be like going to a City game. Classic. Right, we're going to be back in a little bit for the preview. And tonight as well is Late Night Live, usually on a Friday. This week it's on a Wednesday due to... let's call them social commitments on my part on Friday. I've got friends in real life. Who knew? But Late Night Live will be tonight at 10 o'clock, so be sure to check that out. It's going to be a good one. Thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, we're going to be back in a little bit for a preview for the game tomorrow, so we'll be getting into all the team news, all the behind closed doors business, and everything like that. So thank you once again for joining me. See you next time.